Hello everybody, welcome to my channel. My name is Chris and today's video is that time of the month. It's the What Would You Make collaboration, and I will be talking more about that later. So let's begin with our first project. Okay, so I've got some wood pieces here. This is, I'm not sure of the measurements. It's just a square rod, and then I've got this wood piece is from the Dollar Tree, and then I've got some Jenga blocks. Well, I've got some tumbling tower blocks. And first things first, I am going to just sand all my pieces down, just getting some of those rough spots off because I don't want a splinter. And once I've got that sanded down, I'm just going to flip this piece over on the back side and take my tumbling tower blocks, and we're going to use those as feet. And I will use my Titebond Quick and Thick and adhere those down on all four corners. And the one thing I have learned is less is better when it comes to using this type of glue or any kind of tacky feeling glue. So that's why I tend to rub my fingers, making sure I get a nice thin layer. You don't want it too thin to where it won't catch on, but you definitely don't want it too thick. Otherwise it just kind of slides around, and then it also takes a lot longer to dry. And I've got some of these 5-gallon paint stir sticks, and you are going to need 5 of these. The first one, I am going to cut it to 14 inches, and I will just be using my little miter shears here. And after I get that cut to 14 inches, I'm just going to do a 45-degree angle on both corners here, just using my miter shears. And we're just going to give ourselves a little point. And then the next one I am going to cut to the 12-inch mark, and I will just repeat the process, cutting it to that 12-inch mark and then making the point at the top with 45-degree angles. And then what I pretty much do is 2-inch increments. So the next one's going to be cut to 10 inches. The one after that will be cut to 8 inches. And then we will end with our 6-inch. And each and every one of them, I will cut the 45-degree angles at the top. And this is what we're going to have when we are all finished cutting those. Now I'm going to grab this square, I'm going to call it a dowel rod. I don't really know exactly what it's called, but you can pick these up at Walmart or any hardware store. I want to say this is maybe a 1/4 inch, maybe a little bigger, but not quite a 1/2 inch. I don't think it's the 1/2 inch. So I'm just going to cut it to the width of our piece that is from the Dollar Tree. I'm just going to grab one of those paint sticks and kind of use that as a guide. What I am wanting is I'm wanting these to be flush with the back or level with the back, and then that square rod to go right in front of it. And then what I decided was, well, why don't you just flip one of these on its side and draw your line that way, because that's how thick you're going to need it. Well, I tell you, it's amazing what comes to you while you're working. So I just drew a line with my pencil, and then I'm just going to grab my Titebond Quick and Thick, apply just a little line there, smooth it out with my fingers, and place it right. It was supposed to go right in front of the line, not behind the line. But while that's drying, using some clamps to keep it in place so we can get the best adhesion possible. Okay, y'all, don't do what I just did. I just messed up. This was supposed to go in front of my line, not behind the line. I don't know if I'm going to be able to get it off. Maybe it's not dried long enough. Okay, well, it's not coming off. Yeah, that Titebond Quick and Thick is quick and it's tight. I just cut another one, and that's what I'm just going to use to wedge my picket fences in between. But before I do that, I'm going to go ahead and do a stain. And after testing out a couple of stains, I decided to go with the walnut stain. It's a gel stain from Americana Deco Art. I just picked that up at Hobby Lobby, and I'm going to stain all my pieces. And I'm just using a cloth to wipe this on. I don't want it too terribly dark, so I'm really rubbing it in as I'm working it. When I get to the top here, I know I'm going to have to adhere this other square rod in place. So I'm just going to get an idea of where it's going to be sitting, and I'm going to leave that section unstained. That way I just get that wood to wood adhesion. It's just always the best if you can do it that way. And then once I figure that out, I will continue to stain up to the section and also the square rod. Okay, before I finish staining all these paint sticks, which are going to be our pickets, I don't even know if I mentioned that, but it's going to be like a picket fence. I'm just spacing them out with one of these levelers. Our wood base is 11 inches wide, and I am just laying these. This ruler is also 11 inches, and I'm placing them on that, making sure that, all the bottoms are even. I'm going to take this smaller paint stir stick, one of the 1 gallon stir sticks, and just figure out how long I need it, use my miter shears, trim that off, and then I'm just going to kind of place it at an angle, and then I will just apply my Titebond quick and thick to the sections that will be touching those other paint stir sticks. And you can use a little hot glue if you would like, or you can do the whole thing in hot glue. I just want this to be permanent. I don't want to have to worry about that hot glue breaking any of the hold. I want to be able to use this for decorating, so I am going to be patient and allow it to dry. Now, when you're setting these up, make sure you're doing it in a reverse manner if you're putting your 1 gallon paint stir stick on the back side, because you're going to end up flipping it over. I hope that makes sense. All right, and when I went to go and flip this over after that glue had dried is when I realized that one of my paint stir sticks was not as wide as the other ones, or not as thick as the other ones. They did come from 2 different places. Some came from Lowe's, and then this one probably came from Walmart. Well, so it didn't stick. So I'm just gonna apply some more glue to it and stick it back on there and just put a clamp on it while I'm working. Okay, so this is what it's going to look like after we glue this piece here onto our pickets, and then we'll just clamp them together to allow it to dry. And in the meantime, I have a hook. I wish I had a different hook, but I've only got this kind of hook here. This is just from the Dollar Tree. Okay, so I do end up changing here in a bit, but I'm going to keep this in just to show you. You could use one of these little hooks. I went ahead and painted mine in the color Iron Gate. I always try to keep this paint in my description box if you're interested in it. It's an excellent paint. It is a little pricey, but I've had this can for a couple of years and I've still got over half of it left. And I used it on a pretty big project, so it's a really good paint. But I do just go ahead and apply about 3 coats to this hook and set it aside to dry. I am going to be hanging items off of this hook. And this piece here is not in this video how I aged it up. So if you want to see a video where I take that little and make it look rustic, then make sure you follow, because I will have a video coming out showing that in the next 1 or 2 videos. But I wanted a little bit of a gap here, so when that hung down, or when anything hung down, it wasn't being pushed up from that fence. God, I hope that makes sense. But I'm just going to trim this. I have just one of these little wood blocks in my scrap pile here. I don't even know where I got it from. Actually, yes, I do. I think Kendra from Late Night Creations had actually sent these to me. But I'm just going to trim that down. And while I started doing that, I was like, you know what? I don't need to use this kind of hook anymore because I'm going to have a thicker piece of wood there. So I've got one of these cup hooks. I believe I picked these up also from Lowe's. And I'm just going to screw one of those hooks right in the center. But before I do that, I'm going to go ahead and stain it in the same color stain that I had used. And once that's dried, I will just screw the hook in. And you can most definitely drill yourself a pilot hole if you need to. I'm just going to grab a paintbrush and stick it in that hook and use that to start spinning it. And once I get past a certain point, it goes in very easily. I'm just going to use my Titebond and adhere that after I draw me a little line. And I came down from the top point about 1 3/4 to 2 inches from that top point. And we'll just put that on there and clamp it down and let it dry. Like I mentioned earlier, this video is participating in the What Would You Make collaboration, which is hosted by Rustic and Lace DIY and Divine Designs. And this month's special guest host is Lavender and Lace. All the links to these ladies will be located in my description box, as well as the playlist link. I hope you guys will consider going and checking out the playlist. Show all these creators some love. Make sure you like their video, subscribe, leave them a comment. And if you're just joining me from the playlist, I would like to welcome you to my channel and hope you will consider doing the same for me. So with that being said, now let's move on to project number 2. Okay, so I found this in my backyard. I was taking the dogs for a walk. We were coming back. I saw it laying there and I was like, huh. Then I picked up these trees. I got it on Whatnot from a seller. Her name is Sharon Simply. Hello, Sharon, if you're watching. She is one of my subscribers. But she was selling these. I picked them up from her for like $1. So I thought, huh. Why not use these? Now you can also use some regular green color trees if you don't want to get colorful. I just wanted to be a little fun. So I want to put these trees into this little branch. So I'm just going to kind of line them up for spacing. And then I wasn't going to use the pink one, but I do end up using it. But I'm going to first unscrew all those little wood pieces, find me a drill bit that's going to work. And I did end up using the smallest drill bit in my little drill bit box. And I will just drill some little holes where these trees will be going in. And then I'm just going to continue that all the way down. And this is what I had. And then I was like, you know what? I can put this pink tree in there and just use the whole thing. So that's what I did. I just added 2 more holes and put both these trees spaced out. And then believe it or not, as easy as this one is, this project is done. Now you can also go ahead and apply some like little white paint with a chippy brush, give it a snowy look, but I'm going to call it done. So let's go ahead and move on to our next project. Okay, so I picked these up from the Dollar Tree. They come in a little 2-pack, and I'm just pulling off the tag, all that good stuff, and it's got all this glitter on it. I thought I could clean the glitter off with a baby wipe. Don't do that. All that did was get a bunch of fuzz trapped up in the glitter. And I just had to keep pulling all this fuzz off from the baby wipe. So I've got one of these paint sticks. It was just in my wood scrap pile. And I'm going to just make sure that it's big enough for both deer. And I'm just going to cut this piece right down the center using my miter shears. You see how they will both fit. And I did give them a really quick sand along the edge where I had cut. I'm just going to take those 2 pieces. I'm going to put them on something to protect my desk. Because what I want to do is I'm going to position the deer on top of this little base and just with a little marker, just mark where their feet are going to be making contact to that wood piece. And then I'm just going to use my little drill here and then drill some little holes. Now, keep in mind, this is thin wood. If you have a tendency for this wood to keep splitting, you can always put some painter's tape on top and then mark on top of the painter's tape and then drill the hole. That should help, but I didn't have an issue with it splitting. But now I've got a place where the feet are going to be resting in. That way I can put some hot glue inside of those little holes that we drilled, and the feet will sit in it without you being able to see all of the hot glue. And it also gives it just a little bit more area of contact, and it seems to stick pretty well. And I just kind of start with the front 2 holes, get those adhered in there, and then just kind of lift up a little bit on the back ones and put some glue there. and hold it securely in place until that glue sets up. And then we've got a little base. Now you could paint these bases any way you want. I just left them in their natural wood. And then I'm going to do this with our second one. Now looking over these deer, there were like a few little excessive plastic pieces that were just kind of there. So I just took some little cutters and just trimmed those little plastic pieces off. Now I want to go ahead and dress them up just a little bit. I've got the color Autumn Sage from Paint Couture. It's a beautiful green color. I think in the Waverly, that color Sage is really close to this color. But these deer have these scarves on, and I just want to bring those scarves out. Of course, you don't have to do this step. You can leave it. This is just what I had in my mind. I just wanted a little color. So I will paint the scarves on both of these deer. I've got one of these garland ties, and I'm just going to take it and just kind of wrap it around the bottom of the deer. Just kind of make him look like he's standing in some grass. After I tied it around the first time, it was just like way too bushy. So I'm just going to take my scissors and just trim a little bit of that off. And that's what I got for both of them there. But, you know, it's wintertime. Almost. I know we're still in fall, technically, but, you know, it's Christmas. So I'm going to grab some white paint and just a little chippy brush. And then I'm just going to just blot on some of that white paint onto that grass, making it look like it's a little snowy. I will do that to both of them. So let's move on to our final project. Now I've got a pick from Hobby Lobby, and then I've got one of these little grapevine wreaths from Hobby Lobby. I figured the grapevines are wood, a type of wood, so hopefully I'm okay. But anyway, I'm just going to trim some pieces off of this pick, and we're just going to make a little like wintry wreath out of it. And then I'm just going to start gluing my pieces onto the wreath. I don't want to completely cover it. I want this a little bit on the rustic, primitive side. Sometimes to me, simple is beautiful and is the way to go. Sometimes you got to add color, but this I want simple, but you guys do you. And once I finish this project is going to be complete. I'm going to show you the finale and how I decorate all these pieces. And I want to remind you guys, I do put out weekly videos. I usually on Thursday at 6 Central is when my new videos come out. But sometimes I might add a extra video here and there. I'm going to actually try to work on getting to 2 videos a week. We'll see how that goes. I keep telling myself I need to do that. But you guys, please feel free to hit that subscribe button, and let's go ahead and move on and see what the finale is. Okay, so we've got the stand we made. I love how this turns out. And we've got our trees. You can always add some snow to it if you'd like. You can also replace those trees with just regular green trees if that's just too much color for you. I just wanted to have a little bit of fun. I love that idea of doing that. And let's see, we've got some deer. Let's add a little bottle brush tree right there. And then we've got a hanger, and we can just hang whatever we want. I actually made this for a specific piece, but if you want to see what that piece is and how I made it, it'll be in one of my next 2 videos. But I like how this turned out. I think it is so festive, so pretty. And this stand we can use year-round and just decorate it how we please throughout the year. You guys will have to let me know in the comments, what do you think about this piece? I love reading all of your comments. It just really brightens my day. And I hope to see you at my next video. Have a great week. Bye-bye.